Well, this is the start of a new walk that I'm going to be doing today. Today we are on our way to the Pass of Drumochter. Now, this is on the A9. It's halfway between Inverness and Perth. It's about 400-ish meters high, this mountain pass. And what we have are 4 munros to the west of Drumochter and 2 munros to the east of Drumochter. And it's a fine day, as you can see. The visibility is excellent. And we're driving on the A95 at the moment. We've got some low cloud and fog to the right of us, filling the River Spey. So I'm hoping this will be an excellent day trip out to the hills. We're talking about 100 miles of driving each way, so that's 200 miles of driving in total. I started out at 89% charge, more precisely. It's predicting an arrival in Dalwhinnie-ish, about 53%. So that should mean that we get back home with about 15% or even more. So we are now approaching our final destination in terms of driving, and on the right we've got a car park. So battery is now at 49%. We've been driving, it's about 276 watt hours per mile, and it's taken just under 2 hours to complete that journey. And I suspect it's going to be a busy car park when later on. It's 8:30 in the morning, so I've been driving since 6:30. I do like to make sure that I get to these car parks nice and early. Right, time to get some hiking boots on. Right, boots on, so now it's time to get onto the track. So the first mountaintop we're going to climb is Geal Charn. It's about 920-ish meters tall, and we're starting at 450 meters, so it's a relatively straightforward walk to do. Let's have a look at it. So the first thing you come across is the level crossing across the North Highland railway line. This links Perth with Inverness. It's quite a high speed line, relatively speaking. I think it's either a 70, 90 mile an hour speed limit on this line. So left, look right, everything clear. That's good. Time to carry on up this track. So you can follow this track and it goes up the valley in between 2 munros. What we're going to do at this cairn is turn right and follow this track, and this is the one which goes up to Geal Charn, and eventually the track gives way to an engineered footpath, and eventually that engineered footpath gives way to self-made Munro hill path. So we are probably about halfway up Geal Charn. So when the constructed footpath finished, the hill path was quite boggy initially, but now that we're higher up, the footpath is much drier underfoot. So looking to the south, you can look right down the Pass of Drumochter. So I reckon we're about 700 meters here. It's a bit hazy, the air to the south, and I get the feeling it's moving northwards. It was very clear this morning, and I think it's going to get hazier as the day wears on. So we round a small minor summit on the way up to Geal Charn, and now we've got a view extending all the way to the summit. So To the south we can see the 2 munros that we're going to be climbing later on today, and just peeking out to the south of the summit over here we've got Beinn Udlamain, which is quite remote. We'll see a bit more of that. Over to the north we can see Craigmeggy. So this is us approaching the summit of Geal Charn. So here we are, a spectacular backdrop of Beinn Udlamain, to the west, Loch Ericht. Let's just do a zoom in and a scout around. So we've got Beinn Udlamain directly to the west. So that's the next munro I'm going to climb. Can't remember the name. I'll put the name in the subtitles. This is the 3rd munro. Got the Eastern Drumochter Hills over here. In the distance we've got the Newtonmore Munros. We've got this corbett called the Farah in the foreground, and then we've got the Craigmeggy mountains over here, and then we've got 2 munros here. The one on the left is called Geal Charn. I think the one on the right is called Beinn Udlamain, south of Loch Lagan. Then we've got this munro just to the north of Beinn Udlamain. I can't remember the name. I'll put that in the description. So we are continuing down from Geal Charn to the next munro, and the footpath I would describe as being fairly stony, but it's reasonably easy to follow. And as you can see further beyond, we actually meet up with a proper Land Rover track. That's the same Land Rover track that we started on at the beginning of the walk. So beyond, we'll see how the footpath is going up to the next ridge. So the footpath on the way up is quite a mixed affair. This is what it's like, quite high, but we had paving slabs and stepping stones lower down. Now in terms of the view coming from where we came from, here's Geal Charn. As you can see, it's quite a straightforward drop down, quite an obvious path from this distance, and then looking further to the west. Isn't that nice? I like this view, it's very good. So we get to the main ridge linking the next 2 munros. We get a peak south to the 4th munro. I'm not planning to climb this munro. The situation is that if I do climb that munro, it leaves me in a position where I have to walk back along the A9 to get back to my car. Now, in days gone by, I would have done that. I would have hitchhiked back to the car. But with coronavirus as it is, it's a bit dodgy to be hitchhiking at the moment. So this is the next munro. So over in the distance we can see the munros of Skergor and Breriac rising up as white mountains above 900 meters. Closer to where we are, it's quite patchy snow, a good amount of snow in places. What we've got here is maybe the last 10 minutes of walking before we get to the summit of munro number 2. And the snow is quite soft underfoot in the sunshine, and it's hanging around quite well. This week it's been mild temperatures during the daytime, above 14 degrees, but every single night we've had a bit of a frost, maybe a temperature of -1 to -2 degrees. So that means the snow then refreezes each day, and it gradually melts and then reconsolidates. It becomes harder to melt the remaining snowpack under that kind of cycle. So here I am approaching the summit of the second Munro now. It's a fairly easy mountain to climb. It's a nice big whaleback ridge, as it is with most of the other mountains in the Drumochter area. So here we are. That's a nice view. I think it's time for a spot of lunch now. Well, it's been just over 2 years since I was last on this group of mountains. The last time was just before the coronavirus pandemic broke out. I was here, temperatures were about -5 degrees, and there was a gale to severe gale force wind. So it was much colder. But there's also been other times I've been here in April time. Maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and in that situation I had a cloud inversion. It was cloudy in the pass of Drumochter, but when I rose up above the cloud layer, the visibility was absolutely crystal clear, and you could see all the way to Glencoe Mountains, and they were very, very sharp on the horizon. But as you can see today, it's not a bad view. It's really quite nice. There's a lot of winter still up in the mountains. And the weather forecast for the coming week is for the temperatures to drop from about Wednesday onwards. So March is a bit of a funny old month. It can feel like springtime, but it just gives you a bit of false confidence, and then winter comes back with a bit of a later vengeance. So this time next week, this might be a completely white scene all over again. Right, I think it's now time to head on and climb the third and final Munro. I won't be climbing the fourth Munro as explained before. So we are approaching the summit of the third Munro, and something interesting is going on. The top, they're doing a bit of gardening by the looks of things. If we see here, we've got these strips of netting here. And they've weighed down the netting with these clumps of moss. I'm not too sure what their plan is here. I get the impression that it's part of a restoration effort to get the ground repaired on the very summit of this Munro. That's the only thing I can think of, but quite interesting. I haven't seen it 2 years ago, but then again it was all under a lot of ice. So here we are. I don't think the people over there are on the actual summit, but we'll visit both of them. And looking around to the north, you can see Croagmeggy. And I think the haze has cleared up a little bit as well, which is encouraging. Something else of note over here, looking in the distance, you can see what I think is either the Phanex or Beinn Udlamain. It's not the biggest distance. In fact, I think that could be Glen Affric Munros, just looking at the angle where things are. So we can see Schiehallion a bit more closely now, and looking east we can see Beinn Vrachie over here. That's a Corbett right above Pitlochry, very nice Corbett. Over here we've got Beinn Aglow, and in the foreground we've got the eastern Munros of Drumochter. There's 2 Munros on a high plateau joined together, and then you've got I think it's I can't remember this one. I'll put it in the subtitles. That's Munro standing by itself. So what we're going to do is take the northeast ridge down here, and it steepens up briefly. It's got a nice eastern escarpment. It's the most dramatic Munro, to be quite frank, when you see it from the road, but when you approach it from the west, it looks fairly rounded and undistinguished. But it's always a bit of a landmark for those people driving south on the A9 past Dalwhinnie. So, looking back up the northeast ridge, it looks a bit more like this. So we've got this quite deep corrie, quite steep, but I'm sure brave people will sledge down this, no problem at all. So what we have here is a ridge without any continuous path lower down. It's easy enough to follow up here. It's a nice terrain, but as we go down, the heather gets deeper and the bogs start to manifest, and then it becomes a bit more tedious, shall we say, the progress. So we're quite a lot lower down, and as you can see, the footpath has become quite a lot more inconsistent. You've got boggy bits like this, and then there are stony sections later on, and it tends to be a bit more involved in terms of watching where you put your foot and making sure you don't slide onto your bum. So my experience from the past is somewhat dampened by having this footpath under lots of snow, but as you can see, there is a footpath. It was actually quite a decent well-worn footpath on the ridge a bit lower down from where I previously filmed. So the next stop will be back at the car. Okay, so back at my car. At the end of another walk. Right, let's get in here and get home. Well, that was a nice walk. I started at 8:30 and it's now 20 past 2. So that is just under 6 hours worth of walking for 3 munros. If I was to do the extra munro, I'll be an extra couple of hours, I reckon. So it's time to go home, and we're going to review provisional battery performance now. Navigate home. So temperature is 14 degrees, but it's much warmer inside the cabin. So let's see, what are we talking about? We're talking about 96 miles, and we're talking about 19% predicted battery remaining back at home. So let's be on our way, and let's see what we get in terms of performance when we finally get home. So it's a busy road, the A9, but it's a fast road. They've got average speed cameras on this road, and my experience is that since the average speed cameras have gone up, there are actually fewer occasions when you're stopped behind someone who's really slow. It seems to do a much more consistent 60 miles an hour, as opposed to being stuck behind someone doing 40 miles an hour, which occasionally happens. I think one of the reasons for that is because the speed limits for lorries on this road was increased from 40 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour as part of the average speed camera launch. But as you can see, it's a gorgeous day today, and it's really quite nice scenery up at this part of the A9. But we've got the wind on our backs. We've got a downhill trip almost all the way, and we've got much higher temperatures, 14 degrees, and that will all improve the motor performance of this quite drastically compared to the drive in the morning time when it was close to freezing point, or just below or just above. So I'm going to, I think I'll just fast forward this little bit here, and then I'll reconvene later on in the journey. Well, here we are, arriving in Aberlour, and Aberlour is the lowest point on the journey back home, and one of the things you can see from the average energy consumption since Drumochter is that we're using about 186 watt hours per mile, which is really quite good. You know, that's over 5 miles per kilowatt hour, so I'm very pleased with that. If we have a look at the overall energy consumption, show energy graph. So we're predicted to get home with 23% electricity. So it's very, very satisfactory indeed. Yeah, I was speaking with one person in a Range Rover in the car park, and that person was saying he wished he had an electric car. The guy was basically saying he had to drive really slowly now just to keep on top of his fuel bills. And I think one prediction I heard by one person was that by the end of the year we'll probably see 50% of all new car sales in the UK being a plug-in electric vehicle, either hybrid or pure electric. And I think it just goes to show how quickly the technology shift and energy shift is going to happen. I thought 50% will probably happen 3 years from now, but yeah, this guy could well be right. It'd be very interesting to see if it does indeed happen this year. Well, the main road outside my village is closed, so we're taking a diversion into the back of my village. So what have we got? We are nearly home, and we've got 22% charge. It'll probably be 21% by the time we actually get home. And energy consumption from the pass of Drumochter was 192 watt hours per mile. So that's over 5 miles per kilowatt hour. And overall, for the return journey, the consumption was 233 watt hours per mile. So that's pretty good. I think that's very impressive. What I wanted to do, as well as showing you the walk, I wanted to show the drive, simply because a lot of people don't really have an understanding of what the full capabilities of an electric car are at the moment. You don't need a charger at your destination and at every single destination in order to accomplish whatever your mission is. In this instance, I was driving 96 miles each way, and an electric car which is delivering 194 miles of driving, charged at 90% at the beginning, and we're down to 22%, so there's still plenty of electricity left which I could use, but don't have to. It shows that these things are very capable machines for your weekend adventures, and that's what I wanted to point out today. So I'll just wrap up, and we'll talk a little bit more just outside my car. Well, it's a bit more cloudy this evening at my house than it was in the morning time. I checked my solar power generation for today. We exported 31 kilowatt hours of electricity today. That's enough to charge up this car almost 50%. That's impressive, and that was exported at around about 20 pence per kilowatt hour. So we made £6 worth of export whilst my car wasn't charging here and was out taking me hiking. And I think that just illustrates how the economics of going out hill walking have changed with electric cars. This car will be charged up for free at home with a good weather forecast tomorrow for even more sunshine, and I think the weather's going to be pretty good on Monday. Once Monday's done and dusted, this car will be fully charged, ready to do the next 200 to 300 mile drive, whatever. But this has been the first big hill walking trip I've done since the middle of January now. I've done shorter trips closer to home in between, and I'm hoping that this will give people a taste of what I've got to come later on as the summer comes through. So my next videos, there's probably a long distance drive coming along. I'm still debating whether I want to cover that or not. Some people have suggested that the situation with queuing at superchargers is different now than it was 6 months ago. So maybe there is a good reason to do another long distance drive. Okay, so thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you again very soon.